Welcome to CPAC Now, America UnCanceled. Yesterday, or in last show, Mercy and I had the chance to talk to former acting secretary, that's a mouthful, Chad Wolf, about this terrible crisis on the border, which is affecting so many American communities, especially in the great state of Texas. And we thought on this show it would be useful to get a congressional perspective. And I think one of the voices that is really cutting through, explaining what this chaos, the result it's having across the country, is Congressman Jodey Arrington. Congressman, thanks for joining us on CPAC Now.
Great to be with you, Matt, Mercy. You're right. It is an unmitigated disaster for border states. My people and your fellow Americans along the border are at ground zero, front lines, and folks are overwhelmed in terms of the Border Patrol, local law enforcement, and our communities are overrun. And it's only getting worse because Biden's policies are encouraging the wrong behavior. While he's putting restrictions and mandates on the American people, it's free for all at the border. And it's not just humanitarian crisis, a security crisis, $100 billion to the American taxpayer at almost $30 trillion in debt, and an unsustainable safety net for our citizens. It is the potential for another public health crisis by not testing, not screening, and just releasing these folks into the interior of our country.
Yeah, obviously, I think what we're also seeing is that the Biden administration is truly not even calling this a crisis. They're actually avoiding that question and also sending mixed messages to those vulnerable families, those illegal immigrants who are taking the journey to the United States. What is your message to the Biden administration in terms of what this means of it actually being a border crisis?
Well, I don't mean to be too cute about the answer, but you can't hide in your basement and expect this is going to go away, especially when you pulled out all stops, literally, and opened the floodgates by repealing President Trump's restrictions in terms of stay in Mexico policies, reinstating catch and release, repealing funding for the border wall. That's just a few, but you're right. The signal, the message is loud and clear. The American people and their safety and security, not the top priority of our commander in chief. And the other message is, if you were to cross our border, violate our sovereignty, break our laws, you won't be detained and deported. You will be released and rewarded. No accountability. And by the way, the new immigration solution from the Biden administration, a pathway to citizenship, right, and a lawyer paid for by the taxpayers.
No, that's exactly right. And I think the other thing is, what gets lost in this is that when we're talking about having strict border enforcement, the left always says, oh, we're so mean, we're cruel, we're trying to be tough to people who live south of our border. But what I would say is, what about these Border Patrol agents? Mercy and I got a note from a dear friend who's a doctor whose son's a Border Patrol agent. And to hear from the White House podium yesterday that somehow they're starting a new humanitarian approach under Biden, and how they were so, cruel under President Trump. That attacks every border agent who has to do this tough job. They live in your community, Jodey.
Well, they do, and it is completely demoralizing for them to see this revolving door as they risk their lives to enforce the law and protect our neighborhoods and our families. And, it's also sad. We're seeing triple the number of migrant children trafficked by the cartels to this country. And what people need to understand is the drug cartels prey on poor, vulnerable people. And as long as we have the neon sign saying our border is open for illegal business, we are lining the pockets of the cartels. And 1 out of 3 women are sexually assaulted. That's Doctors Without Borders data. It is atrocious, the humanitarian impact, and we're getting nothing. In fact, we're getting worse. We're only putting the incentives for more of this to happen and to enable the cartels and to aid and abet all of this terrible situation.
Let me ask you, Jodey, has the Biden administration reached out to any of you all to talk about what's happening at the border? Are they getting any of your input on what you are listening, what you're hearing on the ground?
No, the uniter in chief, who was going to usher in citizenship like we've never seen, is too busy jamming through a bailout bill and like a king with the stroke of a pen, deluging us with executive orders. It's hard to keep up with them, but they're disastrous. Here's the bottom line, though. When you ask the question, why, and I know Americans are asking, why would this president do these things with the border on fire and all the disastrous results we've been talking about? It's real simple. This president is obsessed, as is his base, with repealing and unwinding anything that has the name Donald Trump on it, regardless of the merits of those policies, number one. Number two, he's equally obsessed with acquiescing to every demand of the radical left. The tail is wagging the dog. The radical left has co-opted the party, and unfortunately, and I think it's sad to say, and I mean no disrespect, but these folks, like this president and other folks that used to be more mainstream, they're puppets to the left and their radical policies. We see it every day in the House, coming across the transom, takeovers of our election, federalizing policing, and now open border and amnesty and a complete crisis at the border.
But Congressman Arrington, it's not just you they're not listening to. They're also not listening to Democrats like Henry Cuellar, who is a pretty reliable Democratic vote. It's not like he's any conservative, but they're not listening to anybody except, like you said, the radical fringe of this movement.
Oh, that's so true. You know it's bad when congressional Democrats are also waving the flag, the red flag of what's going on. We've got to stop this madness. There's a public health restriction that President Trump put in place, Title 42, and it was the restriction that had immediate deportation to prevent the spread of COVID coming across the border. And that's still in place now, but we have Democrats calling for him to keep it in place, which has been a change. But it's also the McAllen mayor and other local elected officials in the Valley. I think it's also a pandering to the Hispanic community. I think it's insulting. The Hispanic community and family and Americans who happen to be Hispanic, they want safe neighborhoods and a secure border.
That's
they want
right.
freedom and opportunity. It is, and listen, that movement of Hispanics to the Republican Party, where we flipped Democrat seats, 15 of them, and didn't lose a single incumbent Republican, I think that's the result of the alignment of the values and culture of the Hispanic American and the rejection of the radical policies coming out of the Pelosi House and the Democrat Party today.
Well, Jodey, I think that's a great point. I mean, my parents came from Cuba. They came here legally. They love this country. They came with nothing and were able to build a life. And I got to talk to so many Hispanics on the campaign trail who felt the same way. And they really believe that there needs to be this legal process. And what you're hearing from the Biden administration, that they're literally with the microphone saying, come on in. We've got lots of legal options for you to come in to America. And that, I think, has led to this migrant surge that we've seen. But I want to get your reaction to a clip. Roberta Jacobson, who is the coordinator of the southern border, actually did her press conference yesterday. There was, again, I would say the muddled message that we heard from the Biden administration. Breitbart News reported that they said the White House mistakenly tells migrants in Spanish that the border is not closed. Let me get your reaction to this clip.
I want to make a point again that it's really important that people not make the dangerous journey in the first place, that we provide them with alternatives to making that journey because it's not safe en route. Así que yo creo que es muy importante subrayar el caso que la frontera no está cerrada y el viaje es muy peligroso y la gente realmente no debían llegar a los Estados Unidos en una manera irregular ahora.
All right, so Jodey, let's get your reaction to that clip.
Well, I think it's consistent with the Democratic talking points where they don't come now, come later, or don't, or it's closed,
Right.
or it's open. There's no plan. These guys, it's chaos. They're trying to placate the left. It's an insatiable desire that will never be satisfied. And now they've got a mess on their hands. And so I'm not surprised that there's mixed messages in the Democrat Party and their friends and extended family in the mainstream media.
But we do have a clear message, and that clear message was that President Trump's immigration policies work, border walls work, and we need to ensure that we have to fix our immigration system and not allow this broken immigration system that has created havoc at the border. Thank you, Congressman Jodey Arrington. It's wonderful to have you on. You're a great patriot. We appreciate the work that you're doing for the people of Texas, and we thank you for joining us on CPAC Now. We'll be right back.
Also going on all the time, I just literally got a notification while I'm sitting here that YouTube has warned the ACU, the group I chair, and taken down the speech of former President Donald Trump at CPAC, and they've given us a warning because they said this is a quote-unquote scam. This is insane.
So this just happened.
This just happened. What they're doing is they're using their corporate power in a way to help the candidates on the Democrat side they like, and to silence any voices that support the Republican candidates on the right. They are no longer corporate entities. They seem to be full-on political entities, and this simply has to stop. How come a former president can't speak? Barack Obama is able to speak. Bill Clinton's able to speak. Donald Trump should be able to speak.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to CPAC Now. America UnCanceled here with the Schlapps. But first, I want to get Matt's reaction to the big speech. Today's the big speech. President Biden is giving his primetime address this evening. And so I want you to predict what he's going to say.
Well, is this the one where Oprah interviews him, or is this like he's just speaking at a podium? Look,
maybe Meghan and Prince Harry are going to be his special guest.
I think all this is actually rather sad. You know, Joe Biden's our president, and there's a lot of bad guys who want to harm America. We have China, which has made such aggressive moves on us. We have terrorists, Al-Qaeda, radical Islamic terrorists. We have so many bad actors, and our president needs to look vigorous as he makes these public statements. So I hope that he looks good, but he has been looking so kind of rough lately. So
lost.
I
would
hope
say lost.
we see a vigorous president. I don't mean to be so serious, but like he really is all of our president, and the stakes are very high. Now, what it seems like he does is they give him what to say, and he says it. You know, I think it'll be quick. He can't go on too long. He's going to talk about how he wants to unify, and he's then going to try to talk about how he's passing the most radical agenda that we've ever seen. As they said yesterday, that was the other day when they signed this bill on the bailouts to big cities and blue states, that this was the most progressive bill ever to pass the Congress. You don't get to be the most progressive ever and the unifier. You can't do both.
That's right. And I think, you know, obviously it's coming on the anniversary of when the COVID pandemic reached our shores today. And so in essence, I think that what we're also going to see is he's going to take a victory lap, right? He's the one that's going to be saying, I've done all these great things. My administration has done all these great things to help slow the spread of COVID. And where I think what you're going to see is he probably will be very critical of President Trump. I could foresee that happening, as well as I hope he acknowledges that it was President Trump and Operation Warp Speed, which led to not just one, but two vaccines. Now three, but the two vaccines under President Trump's administration.
So let me ask you.
Which, you know, Biden forgot that he even took the vaccine.
He did forget he took the vaccine, but Trump reminded him at CPAC that he took the vaccine. But isn't it interesting to see all of these former presidents encourage everyone to take the vaccine without acknowledging that it was the President Trump and the Trump administration that got us those vaccines? And of course, he's not a signature on the letter. What was your take on that?
Well, it's always, I call it the president's elite club excluding President Trump, right?
Yeah.
And I just think it just shows why President Trump has been one of those effective presidents who actually has a movement as compared to these other presidents.
We love the fact that he's not in that club. That's one of the things we love about him.
I agree. But what do you think? Do you think that President Biden will end up praising Dr. Fauci and all the great advice. We've been talking about mixed messages. Talk about mixed messages with Dr. Fauci.
You know, Dr. Fauci will bite this hand too. And I think Joe Biden, just like Donald Trump before him, unfortunately, and Mike Pence, they view Tony Fauci as like a nice little mascot when it comes to health matters. And they trot him out there, and they think that he gives them the veneer of credibility on health issues. But in the end, Dr. Fauci just seems to be very self-engrossed with his media profile. And in the end, that's where this little doctor's going. And so he'll burn Joe Biden eventually, but for a while they're going to have a nice ride.
All right, let's change the topic of conversation here, because what's trending these days, obviously, has to do with the crown, has to do with the royal family. And guess who's been the latest victim of cancel culture?
You're not talking about the Obamas, are you?
Not yet. They might be next. But Prince William, who had to come out publicly and say that the royal family is not a racist family.
That's right.
I mean, this is how far we've gotten in terms of this fight between Meghan and Harry and the royal family. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, the royal family doesn't have any kind of a perfect history. As we know, throughout the history, in the prelude to World War II, there was a lot of associations between the king who abdicated and, love for what was going on in Nazi Germany. So everyone has to acknowledge the parts of history that aren't so pleasant. Not cancel history, just talk about it. But I found it so hard to watch and hard to read to see this future king basically saying, I'm not a crook, I'm not a racist. It seems like everybody has to constantly start public statements by saying they're not a racist. And what I think William would have been better advised to have said is, I love my brother. I'm happy to pay for the counseling he clearly needs to get through this rough time. Well, and as far as this bride of his,
yes.
I plumb don't get it. Who couldn't understand what they were marrying into? It was so obvious. If you don't want to marry into that, guess what? Don't do it. I knew what I was marrying into.
What are you trying to say?
My esposa.
Cuban princess right here, baby. Into. Cuban princess, except I don't have a crown. Maybe you should get me a crown. That would be great.
I thought there was going to be a big fortune in a palace. I thought it was
Fidel
somewhere
Castro
in Havana.
took all of it, honey. We don't have it anymore. But there is one more victim of cancel culture. And this is really sad because this is a character that we all grew up watching. Pepe Le Pew.
Pepe Plulu.
The French. Can you believe it? It's a cartoon character. And they're like, no longer, we're cutting him out of a movie. He's just, it's too much. They don't like him anymore.
Did you, be honest, have you ever watched Pepe?
Yeah, of course. He's the one that like kisses the, the girl, what is it, the cat? Or what is it, Regina?
It's a cat.
It's a cat.
It's a cat.
Paint down the back.
Exactly.
And someone told me today that the cat's a boy. I don't know how we know that. But anyway, this is the insanity we're in. You know, Disney has canceled more cartoons, or they're flagging more of their content. And as someone said on Twitter today, they're canceling all of these Disney movies, all these cartoon characters, while my son is playing the most violent video game you ever saw with every racial kind of connotation involved in it. All kind of the scummy, rough part of life. We are all experiencing more than we ever had. By the way, Pepe Le Pew would be a nice break from the cancerous content that's thrown at us all day long on our television.
Yeah, there's no question. And I think for the Schlapp kids, they're going to be watching Pepe Le Pew. If
they cancel My Little Pony, I just want you to know, my 9-year-old is
that'd be a
never going to recover. And I think there's a lot worse thing happen on My Little Pony than Pepe Le Pew ever thought about. Matter of fact, I have to ask my daughter sometimes, what are they doing in this scene, with the little ponies? So
she knows them
you all know what I'm talking about.
She watches all the shows, but we want to thank you all for joining us today. Schlapp?
Yeah, great to be with you. Great to have Jodey Arrington with us. Thanks for joining us on the show. We are really getting excited about the fact that we're connecting with you in a way that you want to, information you want to learn about. We're not getting what we need to know what's going on, and we're going to bring you all the important people out there who are making these decisions in government, unless they're in the Biden administration, and then other people who have the comic commentary you want to hear. And we're also going to be coming at you with our future CPACs. We're in the middle of planning. We're going to be coming to a big open red state near you. You might have to travel a little bit. Open up this economy. If you open up your economy, you will be rewarded with a CPAC in your state.
Thanks so much. Take care.